Yo, what's up? We out here again. It's the Buff Missionary, continuing through the book, Steps of Christ. Hey, I'm telling you, I was looking at it last night, and it just keeps on coming. But hey, like, subscribe, and share. For real, subscribe, help the content get out to more people. 90% of the people watch the videos, don't like it, and not subscribe. So you're watching it, go ahead, subscribe, come back for more. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, let's jump right into it. It says, it is impossible for us of ourselves to escape from the pit of sin in which we are sunken. Now, let's get a visual on this really quick. We're in a pit of sin. We're sunken into that pit. I'm sure that you may have heard of quicksand, or maybe you had experience with quicksand. I have never experienced it to a degree like that gets really scary for people. But I've definitely seen some videos on YouTube about quicksand and how, man, you have to be in a certain position to have any hope of getting out. Some quicksand moves slower. Some quicksand is really quick. And the interesting thing about it, I think, that really applies to this here is that when you get into it, if you try to struggle too much against what's going on in an attempt to get out, then you only end up putting yourself in it deeper. And the more you struggle, it's like the more you get pulled into that pit. And I believe that's what sin is like. If we are trying to fight ourselves of our own strength and ability, trying to get out, we're only going to dig a deeper hole, and it's going to be harder and harder to get out of it. Maybe another illustration could be bad conversations or bad situations in relationships where it's like you say one thing and you try to take it back, and it ends up blowing up more, and you end up digging yourself in a deeper hole. Some of us have been there. Maybe I've been there once or twice, but that's besides the point. Sin is a pit. It's like quicksand. And we can't get out of it of our own accord. We can't. When you watch those videos of the people who get stuck, they need someone to throw them a line. They need someone else. They need someone outside of that situation if they're going to have any hope of survival. And it's the same thing with us when it comes to sin. We stand zero chance. It's impossible. It's impossible. Our best efforts are only going to put us deeper into that pit. Why? Because of this. Our hearts are evil and we cannot change them. How can we change what we are? Like, that's not something that we can do of our own accord. And it keeps coming back to this. Who can bring a clean thing out of an unclean? I love the simple logic that the Bible shows. Who can bring a clean thing out of an unclean? You're not going to go into mud and find something that's sparkling clean. It's going to be dirty. It's going to take something outside of that mud to clean up whatever is in that mud. That way you can see it for its real value. It's going to take something outside. No one can do that. The carnal mind is enmity against God. It's against it. Our minds, because of sin, are no longer in harmony with the mind of God. We go to the opposite direction, and it's hard for us to get back into that harmony with him without him. And that's the key thing. That's where we're going with this. Why? Because it is not subject to the law of God, neither indeed can be. That's the two verses here are Job 14:4 and Romans 8:7. Romans 8, man, I love that chapter. Combined with Romans 7, I feel like that's the entire Christian experience right there. I think in a previous video, I talked a little bit about Romans 7 and how the things that I will to do, those are the things I don't do. And the things that I don't want to do, those are the things that I do. That's the struggle that we have because of sin. And chapter 8 comes along and kind of explains this more, but also shows us the hope that we have in God and the love that he has for us despite our shortcomings and failures. So it's amazing. Check out those two chapters, Romans 7 and Romans 8, when you get the chance, read them through. But again, because of sin, the Bible states it pretty clearly here. Mankind chose to not be subject or in agreement to the law of God and the mind of God when we chose sin. That's something that we've done, and we can't get ourselves back up to that level or that standard without some help to pull us up to that standard, out of that pit. Check this out. This is so deep here. Education, culture, the exercise of the will, human effort, all have their proper sphere, but here they are powerless. When it comes to the things we try to accomplish and to do better at in life, education can often help us get there. A lot of people spend the better part of the first 20 to 30 years of their experience being in some kind of school. Maybe not that long, depends on what you study, right? But for young people, you might start kindergarten, let's say 5 years old. By the time you're 18, you're done high school, another 4 years minimum if you go to college, maybe, and you could get up to 8, 9 more years depending on what you study. So, I mean, it's up there. It's up there. And a lot of people who end up going through that experience and putting all of that time into that education, that investment, they can make a lot for themselves because of what they've invested their time in to study. Engineers, lawyers, doctors, these are people who all have access to a lot of wealth and opportunity because of the things that they've studied. There's power in the education to help them to that end. Education will not help you get out of the sin problem. It can't help you get out of the pit of sin, that quicksand. Culture, the way that you live, your background, your experience, the things that you've been taught, all of those things can help you be a great contributing member to your society. And if you choose to learn about a different culture as you go into it, I'm a missionary and I love to learn other cultures and other experiences so I can be more effective in those contexts. That's great. But it's not going to help me get out of the pit of sin. Exercise of the will. We hear about this all the time. Mind over matter. The things that you think have power to change your reality. And it's true in a lot of respects. But it's not going to get you out of the pit of sin. Human effort. Oh man, try harder. Try and try again, right? How often do we hear these things? It's the buff missionary, right? And it's not actually because of different story. I'll get to that later. The point is, if you go to the gym, human effort is what drives your success. You cannot go to the gym, sit down and expect to get bigger, to get more buff, to get stronger, to get your heart rate, your cardio better. It takes human effort, painstaking human effort. But the beautiful thing about the gym is, when you go in there, if you put in the effort, you will see the result. It's only a matter of time, but you're guaranteed to see the result if you're consistent in putting in that human effort. Not with sin. You can put as much human effort as you want to try to get out of the pit of sin, and you will get nowhere. Here, all of these things are powerless. They all have their proper sphere. They all have the places where they will yield great results, but not here. Not here. They may produce an outward correctness of behavior, but they cannot change the heart. And speaking of the gym, some of you know this. You can go to the gym as often as you want to. I like to run Spartan races. But I don't like to run. For as many Spartan races as I've done, it's hard for me to find the enjoyment in actually running. Yeah, I might have these trophies. You can see them. You can see them right there. I got the hardware to prove it. I got my trifecta stuff. Where is it? Right there. Right there. You can see it. But for all of those races, for all those miles run, I don't love running. Doing Spartan races did not change my heart towards running. And none of these things can change your heart towards the sin problem to make you better. It can't. Nothing we do can. It can make it look like I love to run, even though I don't. That's what these things do for us. They cannot change the heart. They cannot purify the springs of life. There must be a power working from within, a new life from above, something outside of ourselves, something new from above, before we can be changed from sin to holiness. And that power is Christ and Christ alone. It's interesting when it comes to religion, spirituality, Christianity, Adventism. I think there's, how do I say it? you know what? I'm not trying to be politically correct, so I'll just say what I'm thinking. When it comes to religion, we try to do things and to uphold standards and to keep rules, thinking that it's going to save us. We do that in Adventism. We do that in Christianity. We see that in spirituality. We see that in a lot of different religions around the world. We see that. And basically, what we're exposing is that it's this idea of human attainment. The more that I can do, the better of a person I can make myself, the more presentable I will be before God when it comes to that final analysis. That's how we present religion, as like this band-aid or like this secret sauce or this thing that we can take, that if we get enough of it in us, it'll cover up the badness and the sin, so we'll look good before God. But it's our efforts. But what do we read here? Who can bring a clean thing out of an unclean thing? Not one. So all of our human attainment is not going to accomplish anything. We understand that based on the illustration. The carnal mind is enmity against God. So how can a mind that is against God by nature work itself back into harmony with God? How can that mind that's against God do that? It can't. What I'm saying is that any religion, and this is a strong statement here, any religion that has an ounce of human attainment is useless. It's absolutely worthless. Because if the purpose of religion is to get us closer to God, it has to be God who's doing that work in us, to willing to do of his good pleasure. It can't be us doing anything of it. The things that we do have their place, but not when it comes to saving us. The things we do cannot save us. We have to get that kind of thought out of our head. And if that's the kind of religion that we subscribe to, then you can do a whole lot of good things to be an outwardly perceived better person, outwardly perceived better person. It doesn't mean that you're going to be good with God because of those things that you did. That's not possible. But on the flip side, if Christ is the key, then we're talking about divine atonement. That's the contrast. Human attainment versus divine atonement. Religions that are based in human attainment get you nowhere. It is what it is. And you can do the studies. I've looked into this. Look into it for yourself. Don't take my word for it. A lot of religions have this claim that by adhering to their belief system, you can get closer to the divine. Right? But if it has to do with the things that I'm doing, it's not going to work. It can't work because a clean thing cannot be produced out of an unclean thing. And I am an unclean thing as a human because of sin. Christ is the key, divine atonement. It has to be him, and it has to be him 100%. For God so loved the world, right? That he gave his only begotten son, that whosoever believes in him. It didn't say whoever educates themselves and knows everything about all aspects of Christ's life. It doesn't say whoever adapts the culture of the people back in Christ's day and tries to live according to that same way and does it better than anybody else. It doesn't say those who exercise their will to try to match it up with the will of Christ. It doesn't say those that put forth all the human effort possible, all of their effort to try to live up to the standard that Christ said. It doesn't say any of that. It says he so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whosoever believes in him believes. You have to accept something that's been done on your behalf, not do something on your own behalf. All right? You have to accept the divine atonement. You have to get out of the mentality of human attainment. Out here dropping the book and everything. Getting too hyped up in here. But let's finish this up. There must be that power working from within, a new life from above, before men can be changed from sin to holiness. That power is Christ. His grace alone can quicken the lifeless faculties of the soul and attract it to God, to holiness. There has to be something put inside us, something that we have to accept to be put inside us that's connected to something outside of us. That's what Christ does. That's what Christ does. And when we accept what he's done for us, now he has the access to our hearts, our souls, our minds, to give us better influence, to to inspire us in ways that we can't do on our own because we're not capable of. And then through faith, through that belief in him and his sacrifice for us, all of a sudden we can escape that pit because he's the lifeline that can pull us out. It's strong enough to pull us out because it's bigger and it's better than the sinful existence and the nature that we deal with on the day-to-day basis. His grace alone can bring us to life and attract the things in us to God. It can make us desire to be good and actually give us success in reflecting the character of Christ, which is the goal. The real character of Christ, as we're talking about here. Not this whole thing about a bunch of requirements and trying to live up to it on our own, because that's nothing more than human attainment. But reflecting the character of Christ and realizing that it's all about accepting divine atonement that was given for everyone, which means that anyone can take advantage of that. Not just people who look like me, act like me, believe like me, go to the same church I do, and hold the same standards of belief I do. Anyone. John 3:16 doesn't talk about Adventists. Hey, if Adventists choose to believe, cool. But there's a whole lot of other people out there who could choose to believe too, and that verse is talking about them as well. That's all I'm saying. You trying to keep it real out here. But let me stop. I'm going to stop there for now. It's divine atonement. I will say this to close. And here's why the difference between human attainment and divine atonement, this difference between requirement and relationship is so vitally important. If there's anything that I can do, even down to 1% of my belief system, if there's 1% that I need to do to save myself, the reality is I don't need God. Straight up. If I can do anything to save myself, I don't need him. And here's the thing, because the heart naturally is sinful, it's prideful, it's selfish, the tendency would be to always use that way to get out, even if it is the 1% option. Because it takes more faith to believe in God, someone outside of me that could save me. It's easier. You guys know I'm speaking the truth here. It's easier for us to rely on our own abilities and the things that we believe we are capable of instead of relying on outside help. That's something we all struggle with, whether you admit it or not. That has a really big implication when it comes to the spiritual. Because if I only try to lean on myself, I'm not going anywhere. Being scuba diving and having to tread water for 10 minutes, thought I was going to drown. And there are people who had struggles worse than me out there trying to get that certification. I can struggle as much as I want to. Struggling harder is not going to get me out of the water or save my life. Someone's got to throw me a lifeline. Someone has to throw me one for me to have any chance of survival. That's the situation that we're in. We're drowning. We're in sin, and the more that we struggle, the harder it is for us to stay afloat. We need that lifeline. And that lifeline is Christ. Plain and simple. Straight up. That's what it is. 100%. So, hey, it's the Buff Missionary again. Like, subscribe, share. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share. And I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace.